What's going on, everybody? Kalipus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a quick comparison between the Boost Mobile Celero 5G Plus and the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G. Now, as always, if you do end up wanting to learn more about either phone individually, be sure to check out the description where I am linking to several other videos about them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So with the Boost Mobile Celero 5G Plus, we're getting a really large 6.95-inch 120Hz IPS LCD display with a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 386, and a 20.5 by 9 aspect ratio. With the Samsung Galaxy A23, we're getting a not quite as large but still decently large 6.6-inch 120Hz PLS LCD display. This phone also has a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 400, and a 20 by 9 aspect ratio. So clearly here, the Boost Mobile Celero 5G Plus has a huge advantage when it comes to size. At 6.95 inches, this is really a super large display, and on one hand, some people might prefer something a bit more compact, so if that's you, you might want to go with the A23 5G, but if you do want a really large display, maybe you're constantly watching videos, reading, stuff like that, in that case, the Boost Mobile Celero 5G Plus will be a great choice for you. But when it comes to stuff like image quality, the phones are pretty much equal. Both have real nice looking 1080p resolutions and higher refresh rates, making the phones feel a bit more premium to use, so definitely great there. So if you are looking for a phone that has really good image quality, you're not going to go wrong with either phone here. Now for storage, with the Celero 5G Plus, we're getting 128GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, and with the A23 5G, we're getting 64GB with microSD card expansion as well. So clearly here, the Boost Mobile Celero 5G Plus has a huge advantage, having doubled the storage of the A23 5G. So if storage is more of an important thing for you, maybe you're constantly downloading new apps and games and stuff like that, then in that case, you will want to go with the Celero 5G Plus. On the other hand though, keep in mind, with the A23 5G, although 64GB isn't really a ton of storage, for the average user it still will get the job done, so if you're not really that concerned about storage and you really just need something decent, you should still be okay here. For security features, both phones have fingerprint scanners right here on the power keys, and in addition to this, the A23 5G does have Face Unlock, but keep in mind, the Boost Mobile Celero 5G Plus doesn't. But real quick, let's give the fingerprint scanners a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. And now for the A23 5G. There we go. One more time. And there we go. So as you can see there, both fingerprint scanners were real fast and responsive, no issues at all. And again, the A23 5G does have Face Unlock too, so if you want to use that instead, you always can. Now taking a look at the camera setups here, with the Boost Mobile Celero 5G Plus, up front, we get a nice looking hole punch design for the selfie camera. This camera is 16 megapixels. Then on the back, we get a triple camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. With the A23 5G, up front, we get a water drop notch design for the selfie camera. This camera is 8 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a quad camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. So in general, both phones have pretty good camera setups. I am glad to see that with the Boost Mobile Celero 5G Plus, we are at least getting an ultra wide camera, but for whatever reason, it doesn't have a macro camera. Now, in my opinion, a macro camera really isn't that useful anyway, but if you do want to get those close-up detailed images, if that is more of an important thing for you, the A23 5G will have an advantage there. Now to give you an idea of what they can do, first, here's some pictures taken with the Celero 5G Plus. Overall, I do think they are pretty decent considering this is more of an entry-level phone. Sure, it retails for around $289 full price, but considering this is a carrier branded phone, you're probably not going to pay that for it, or at least I definitely wouldn't. I've seen it go on sale for anywhere between $59 and $159, so I would expect that to be more of a normal price range. And considering that, I do think the photo quality here is at least decent. And then here's some pictures taken with the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G, and honestly between the two, I would definitely say the A23 5G takes much better photos. Sure, again, the Celero doesn't take bad photos, but at the same time, the A23 is on a slightly better level. So if you are using your camera a lot, then definitely keep this in mind. Now when it comes to RAM and processor, with the Boost Mobile Celero 5G Plus, we're getting 6GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 695 processor. With the A23 5G, we're getting 4GB of RAM, and this phone actually has the same processor, which again is the Qualcomm Snapdragon 695. So in general, considering these phones again do have the same processor, there's not really a significant performance difference between the two, but keep in mind with 2 extra gigabytes of RAM, the Celero 5G Plus is going to be a bit better when it comes to stuff like multitasking or just doing more demanding activities in general. But in my experience, there's really not an insane difference. Both phones have pretty good performance for what they are. Keep in mind they are mid-range phones, so if you're coming from maybe an older flagship phone for example, these phones are not going to be nearly as fast, but at the same time, for more basic daily use like web browsing, social media, mobile gaming, and streaming content like videos and music, stuff like that, they will definitely get the job done. Now I did run a benchmark test on each phone using Geekbench 6, and here are the results I got. So as you can see, there's not really a huge difference between the two, but technically the Celero 5G Plus has a bit of an advantage, which does make sense considering despite having the same processor, this phone again does have 6 gigabytes of RAM, whereas the A23 5G only has 4. But again, for all intents and purposes, either phone is going to be perfectly fine for more basic activities anyway. So either way, if you are looking for a mid-range phone that has good performance, either phone will get the job done. Now for the batteries, both phones have 5000 mAh batteries, with the Celero 5G Plus supporting 15 watt fast charging and the A23 5G supporting 25. So definitely great batteries here. With a 5000 mAh battery, you can expect to get some real good battery life and longevity. So if that is more of an important thing for you, you're not going to go wrong with either phone. But if you want to maximize charging speed, the A23 5G will have a bit of an advantage, provided you do have a 25 watt fast charger. But in my experience, the Celero 5G Plus has perfectly fine charging speeds too. For the software, with the Celero 5G Plus, this phone does have Android 12, and considering it's a carrier branded phone, at this point I'm not expecting it to get any kind of major updates or anything. But with the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G, this phone does have Android 13, and in addition to this, keep in mind, Samsung has really good software support, so with this phone you can also expect several other major updates in the future. I believe it will be getting Android 14, 15, and 16, so yeah, definitely for long-term software support, and just the current software for that matter, the A23 5G will have a huge advantage. As far as other features go, both phones do have NFC, so if you like to use tap and pay, you'll be happy to know you can do that with either phone, no problem. And another thing I always forget about the Celero 5G Plus is this phone actually does have wireless charging. Now, wireless charging for most people isn't really a game changer per se, but in my experience, it definitely is a nice thing to have. So if you do want wireless charging, keep in mind it's really a feature mostly only flagship phones have. So with the Celero 5G Plus, although I feel like it's not really a reason to choose this phone in and of itself, it definitely is a nice thing to have too. But in conclusion, which of these phones is better? In general, I feel like in most ways, the Celero 5G Plus has most of the advantages here. It has a significantly larger display, so if you're going to be on your phone a bit more doing lots of content consumption like reading, watching videos, playing games, pretty much anything where you want things to be not only larger and easier to see, but you also want good image quality too, well the A23 5G has really good image quality as well. Having such a large display is definitely great when you're consuming content. In addition to this, the Celero 5G Plus has double the storage with 128 gigabytes. It has wireless charging too, which is definitely not a feature you see every day. And while again there's not really an insane performance difference, the Celero 5G Plus is a tiny bit faster. Now all this being said, despite having most of the advantages, the A23 5G actually has a couple advantages too. First of all, again with the software, this is really the biggest one here, because at this point in 2023, especially considering this is a newer phone, having only Android 12 is definitely a drawback, and if you're planning on keeping the phone for multiple years, the software support you get with the A23 5G is definitely going to be a good thing. In addition to this, I do think the A23 5G has a significantly better camera, so if you're taking a lot of pictures, that is another reason why you might also want this phone instead. But this concludes my comparison between the Boost Mobile Celero 5G Plus and the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G. Again, if you want to learn more about either phone individually, definitely check out the description where I am linking to several other videos about them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipis Tech on Twitter and Instagram, and as always, I will see you in the next video.